People have known about oil for a very long time. As far back as 4000 BCE, ancient civilizations recognized and used oil. The Mesopotamians were some of the first to discover oil seeping from the ground. Oil was a valuable resource. They used it in construction to hold bricks together. They also used it as waterproofing for boats. Oil was important for their way of life. It showed them that oil existed beneath the surface. Around 2000 BCE, ancient Chinese people also found oil. They discovered it seeping into their salt wells. The Chinese were very clever. They used bamboo pipes to drill for more oil. These early wells were shallow, but the Chinese were able to get oil. They used it for heat and light. They even used oil to boil seawater to get salt. Long before Europeans arrived, Native Americans knew about oil. They found it seeping from the ground in many places. Tribes all over North America had their own uses for oil. The Seneca tribe in Pennsylvania used oil as medicine. They believed it could heal burns and cuts. Other tribes used oil to waterproof canoes. Some even used it in warfare. They would set fire to the oil to scare off their enemies. Section 4. European explorers and the Black Gold early encounters in the New World. The arrival of Europeans in the New World marked the beginning of a series of significant encounters and discoveries. Among these, the discovery of oil, often referred to as black gold, played a crucial role in shaping the future of the continent. When Europeans came to America, they learned about oil from the Native Americans. The indigenous people had long known about the existence of oil and its various uses. They shared this valuable knowledge with the newcomers, demonstrating how oil could be used for medicinal purposes, waterproofing, and even as a fuel source. Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto was one of the first Europeans to see oil in America. His expeditions in the early 1540s led him to the discovery of oil seeps, which were natural occurrences where oil would seep to the surface of the ground. In 1541, he found oil seeps in what is now Texas. This discovery was significant as it highlighted the presence of valuable natural resources in the region, which would later become a major center for oil production. Later, in the 1700s, French explorers found oil in the Ohio River Valley. Their explorations further expanded the knowledge of oil deposits in North America, revealing that these resources were more widespread than initially thought. They observed oil floating on the surface of springs and rivers. This natural phenomenon intrigued the explorers and led them to document their findings meticulously. The French called oil petroleum, which means rock oil in Latin. This term would become the standard nomenclature for oil in scientific and industrial contexts. They used it to grease the axles of their wagons. This practical application of oil demonstrated its utility in everyday life and foreshadowed its future importance in industrial applications. These early encounters with oil showed that it was present in many parts of North America. The knowledge gained from these initial discoveries laid the groundwork for future exploration and exploitation of oil resources, which would eventually become a cornerstone of the modern economy. Section 5. Pennsylvania's oil history before the Drake Well. Pennsylvania's journey into the oil industry began long before the famous Drake Well was drilled. Pennsylvania would become the heart of early American oil production, a pivotal region that would shape the future of the industry. But before the famous Drake Well, people already knew about oil in Pennsylvania. Natural oil seeps were common, and the presence of oil was no secret to the inhabitants. The Seneca tribe had been using it for centuries. They utilized oil for medicinal purposes and as a waterproofing agent for their canoes. Early European settlers also found oil seeps. They quickly recognized its potential and began to collect it for various uses. They used oil for lighting their homes, providing a much-needed source of illumination in the dark evenings. Some even used it as a lubricant for their tools, which helped in maintaining their farming and household equipment. As more settlers arrived, the demand for oil grew. The increasing population saw the value in oil for everyday life. People started collecting oil from seeps and selling it. This early trade marked the beginning of a burgeoning oil market. This showed that there was a market for oil even before drilling began. The groundwork was laid for what would become a major industry, setting the stage for the revolutionary Drake Well. Section 6. The pioneers of the oil age setting the stage for Drake. In the early 1800s, people began to realize that oil could be more than just a lubricant or a source of light. It was a time of innovation and discovery, where the potential of oil was just starting to be understood. William Hart, a businessman, collected oil from seeps in Pennsylvania and sold it as medicine. He was one of the first to see the commercial potential of oil, recognizing its value beyond traditional uses. In the 1840s, Samuel Keir, a salt manufacturer, found oil in his salt wells. This accidental discovery led him to experiment with refining the oil, transforming it into a usable product. He began selling it as a lamp fuel, calling it Keir's carbon oil. This innovation provided a cleaner and more efficient source of light, revolutionizing how people illuminated their homes. George Bissell, a lawyer, believed that oil could be even more valuable. He saw the potential for oil to be used as a fuel for engines, which were becoming increasingly important in the industrial age. He formed the Pennsylvania Rock Oil Company and hired Edwin Drake to drill for oil. This was a bold move, as drilling for oil was an unproven method at the time. In 1859, Drake struck oil in Titusville, Pennsylvania. This monumental event marked the first successful use of drilling to obtain oil, setting a precedent for future oil exploration. This event marked the beginning of the modern oil industry. The success of Drake's well demonstrated the viability of drilling for oil, leading to a boom in oil exploration and production. All the observations and efforts that came before paved the way for Drake's success. The combined ingenuity and determination of these early pioneers laid the foundation for the oil industry as we know it today.